Hello, everybody, and welcome to the sixth episode of the Pucknology Writers Room, a show that you can find on all kinds of platforms. If you are catching this late on the audio stream, just remember that this show is recorded live, and although we don't swear our heads off like we do on Pucknology After Dark, sometimes we do use sour language, and it's sometimes we slip. So be mindful if you're listening with your kids in the car or something. This week, we're going to basically talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about just some general NHL news to start the show, and then we're going to wrap up with a look at the Anaheim Ducks to start our division preview. And as always, if we have time, we'll do a quick Q&A and get the heck out of here. So, yeah, I got to make Eric not be the screen anymore. See what happens when you put me in charge? Terrible stuff. Terrible stuff. All right. So, here we go. Starting off the show today, I guess we can start with some Sharks news. The only bit of Sharks news that was really left to happen, Matt Nieto signed a one-year deal for $735,000 for a one-year, one-way deal. What do you guys think? Just any general thoughts on this deal before we kind of pick it apart? Eric, since you're the guest, I should actually introduce everybody. Hey,
yeah, there you go.
That's Eric. He had to be on the shore. He would fire me. Yeah, it's basically I have no control anymore. With me, as always, it seems, is Kevin Lacey.
I'm sorry, everyone out there. You're stuck with me again.
Oh man, the worst. And back from vacation, the lack of flow with Drew Weber, which I'm very disappointed with.
I miss my hair too, man. I'll work back on it.
Okay.
The flow must return. That's, by the way, that's Patrick O'Sullivan's favorite guy right there.
Oh, he loves me. Patrick O'Sullivan loves me.
Nice. Okay, so anyway, Eric, go ahead. Start. Any general thoughts on this deal off the top of the?
Well, when you said 7,000, I was like, wow, how the heck did the league okay that? But even then, 785 is
35.
35, even better, $50,000 better. That's $50,000 we'll have to save on rally towels for the playoffs next year. All I'm saying is it's a great deal, but like I said off the air before we went on, the last two deals with Hertl and Nieto are like a don't tell me that you deserve this, show me you deserve a better deal. And it's a huge incentive to a make or break, especially for Nieto.
Drew, what do you think?
I think it's a fantastic deal. I know a lot of people, don't like Matt Nieto because of his plus-minus or because of his lack of production, but he is a pretty decent defensive forward. I mean, he's relied on defensively even more than Marc-Edouard Vlasic at points. He starts like 60% of his shifts, I think, in the D zone. So, I mean, you have that. He's been incredibly lucky throughout his whole career. I mean, you can buy into that however much you want, but I mean, for $735, why not?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, when you compare it to the guy, like Drew, you mentioned he's more of a defensive forward at this point. So when you compare it to someone like Nick Spaulding, who we let go to free agency, who still actually is unsigned, probably wanting $1.5 million to $2 million, that's 2 to 3 times what Nieto's making. Nieto's got the speed. He's not super fast like a lot of people believe, but he's got speed, he's got the intelligence. I still want to see more offensive output, but I'm not going to complain about that contract whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I feel too. You look at what he does on the defensive end of the puck, and I think he's almost criminally underrated on the defensive end of the puck. Yeah, obviously, after, we kind of wanted to see him take that next step offensively, and last year he took a step back. But when you consider the dollar amount, I mean, once Hertl signed that deal, if I'm like Dylan DeMello and if I'm Matt Nieto, I corner him somewhere and beat the crap out of him for taking that nice deal. But I like Nieto. He's got a strong possession game. He's got a he's good on the defensive end of the puck, and you still need guys that are good on the defensive end of the puck. Could he be a little more physical? Yep. He could be, absolutely, but sometimes I think that if you have the puck, then you don't need to hit anybody.
And it's also like, who would you be able to get in the free agent market who's going to fill Nieto's role for less money, considering the Sharks'
Right.
cap situation?
Exactly.
I mean, so obviously, like, to me, this is is this a team friendly deal? I think it is. Obviously, I mean, the price is less than his qualifying offer. Um, I don't. I guess I'm curious as to what you guys think might be the motivation. Is this a team-friendly deal? Is this to try and make himself a trade target because he's, a guy that might be an odd guy out? What do you guys think? I'll start with you, Kev.
Oh, cool. I was going to jump in anyway. About the trade aspect of it, I actually don't think he's a trade candidate anymore because of the deal. Because I feel like, why would Nieto accept a low-end deal if he knew he was going to be traded, but he didn't know where he was going to be traded to? Like, if I'm Nieto and they come to me and say, hey, we're going to sign you, but we're looking to move you on elsewhere, I'd say, like, well, then pay me more so that I have some guaranteed money, because I might be going from a Cup finalist to the 29th ranked team or something like that. So I would want
might
more
get
money.
more opportunity, though. I mean, if you look
That's
at it,
true.
not to jump back, I mean,
No.
if you look at it from that perspective, though, you might want to take the lesser deal because it's only a 1-year deal,
Yeah.
and so you could go somewhere else. You're still a restricted free agent. You still have arbitration rights, and then you could go to a team on the cheap that has a spot for you where you can fill in and play a more prominent role than maybe you're going to play on the Sharks when you look at some of the the additions to the roster. Like, I don't think there's a spot in the top 6 anymore for Matt Nieto with the Bodker signing.
Right. I agree.
Drew, anything you want to add on that?
I used to be the whole like trade Matt Nieto thing because he's not doing anything, and now he signs this deal, and like Kevin was saying, he's not really trade bait anymore, and it's because with that deal, the team isn't going to want to trade him because that's a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah.
And then I don't think he wants to be traded either. I mean, he just went to the Stanley Cup final. You're getting a pretty good amount of ice time considering the production that he has, and he's playing with better players than he would be anywhere else, considering how deep the Sharks are. So now there's no reason to move him from the Sharks end, and there's no reason for him to want to be moved from his end.
And he's
Right.
a Long Beach native.
And
He's a Long Beach native, of course.
Can't forget that. Eric.
You guys pretty much hit it on the head. It's a good deal. It gives them room to maybe make a little more of a splash. Maybe that's how Michael Bodker gets here. Rather than maybe giving him 3.2, he gets 4 because Nieto, essentially takes a pay cut. It could also show the commitment that he has. That I've been here since day one of my career. I want to be here. I want to help out. Whenever I need to jump up to the second line, I will. If not, I'll take a third, fourth line. I'll be happy to help out on PK. I'll happy to help out trying to get a shorthanded goal. Do whatever it takes, and that's what this team needs are guys that want to do whatever it takes.
Can I jump in real quick here?
Absolutely.
I definitely believe that both Hertl and Nieto are signed to show me deals, as you guys mentioned. But do you think any part of this has to do with Brent Burns' contract situation going forward? And could they just be saving up money for him, or is it strictly on the players that were signed?
You see, I think more for Hertl's deal, because Hertl's deal is longer than a year, obviously. Hertl's deal is a 2-year deal, if I remember correctly.
Yes, 2x3.
Yes. Okay, yes, so 2x3 for Hertl. Nieto, no, I mean, not so much, because Brent Burns' salary for this year is still where it is. I mean, it doesn't increase until, even if he signs an extension mid-season, that extension doesn't kick in until next year. So I don't know how much Burns plays a factor into there. I think that the Burns money is going to make a very, like I've said a few times now, and I'm sure I'm not alone, the Burns money is going to come from a Joe Thornton and a Patrick Marleau.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion. I mean, so I guess the final question on Matt Nieto is, are you surprised he didn't go to arbitration? Because I feel like a Matt Nieto, like, although maybe not my favorite player on the team. I like, some aspects that he brings to the team. He's not my favorite player though, but I can't help but think that he could have done better in arbitration. And then what's the worst that could happen? The Sharks walk away and he becomes an unrestricted free agent. Drew.
I honestly don't know why he wouldn't go to arbitration. I think it must be because he wants to play for the Sharks. He wants
Yeah.
to win a cup with this team. Now, I think we're going to jump into this in a little bit, but the Sharks are still looking for a backup goaltender if they want to look externally. So if Nieto signs for any more than that, the Sharks don't have a lot of cap space to work with. So I think it was one of those things where you're going to sign for this amount, or we're just going to let you walk.
Eric.
Yeah, I agree. That it's a cap friendly deal for the team. Although, like Celestia was mentioning in the chat, you have a total of 28 NHL goals. Like Jay Clark saying, how many were empty netters per se? That the production hasn't been there at the moment. This is a good deal, and like we said, it's a show me deal. Show me you want to get that $1 million paycheck. So we'll see. But arbitration isn't exactly the best thing for both sides.
No, I mean, there's been stories of players that have come out of an arbitration meeting in tears. So it's a
Antti Niemi is an example, I would think.
I don't remember if Niemi was listed, but I mean, a while back, I think it was Tommy Salo. And I know this is going back some, but I feel like that was one that really went to arbitration and really really had bad things for the person going in. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously there's that really really good point. And just a couple of things from the chat quick. That arbitration is obviously terrible for relationships, which we just kind of touched on. Sleepy Mofo. Another thing is like Nieto just really. I mean, if you're Doug Wilson, I mean, doesn't this really? If you're Tommy Wingles, is your bags not already packed? Drew.
I mean, I don't see Tommy Wingles sticking around for the whole season, honestly. So yeah, if I'm Wingles, I'd better start looking at new homes.
Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, because of his salary, I think Wingles. I still think there's more to be had out of Wingles. It was a poor year, but the years before that weren't bad for him. So I still believe he can do it. And if he gets traded, well, then I'll take his sticks because I scored a goal with his stick on. So thank you, equipment sale.
Eric, anything?
Yeah, I think both of them should have them packed. I think that a deal could be imminent for somebody to get a pick out of, if maybe like Sorensen or Goldolbin or I know Myers I think is a lock to make the team already, but I mean there might be somebody that's been playing in the minors or just recently coming into the organization that might be already better than them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of been my plank for a while now too. Is that, to me, Timo Meier is NHL ready now, and he can bring you everything that Tommy Wingles can bring you for less money, and and this is a guy that's obviously important going forward. Where I feel like Wingles, this is obviously not a Peter DeBoer guy. His ice time has never been lower. On the Sharks, and obviously that probably plays into production too. When your minutes get cut to 7 minutes a night from 10 to 12, that's not a good sign either. And then a lot of talk about Sorensen in the chat. Yeah, Sorensen's another guy. I mean, I didn't see, but last week on this show, Kevin and Zach both sang the praises of this guy, and I trust their opinions. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys that could come up and take I think easily take Wingles' spot. If there's one thing the Sharks have in their system, it's Tommy Wingles in spades. So when you're making $2.4 million, that's not good for you. Go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
What I was going to say was with Tommy Wingles, the guy you should actually be concerned about is Ryan Carpenter. And we've talked about Ryan Carpenter's probably an AHL guy, mostly AHL guy, but he has the same kind of game as Wingles, and he's far cheaper. So if Wingles struggles again and Carpenter gets called up, Carpenter might just stick because he fills the same role.
Well, and Jay
just look
Clark.
at his Twitter handle.
What's that?
Love his Twitter handle.
Oh,
And Jay Clark also bring up in the chat, like you could get similar play from Barclay Goodrow, also cheaper.
yeah.
So I mean, it's just if you're Tommy Wingles, I mean, you're getting passed in the depth chart and you're not living up to your you're not building up to your paycheck. I mean, Tommy Wingles at this point, in my opinion, should be a 20-goal guy at this point. I think you should. I think it would be a reasonable expectation to expect about 20 goals a season out of Tommy Wingles, and nowhere close.
Well,
Definitely had him at that last season. Sorry, Eric.
No, you're good. I was going to say, wasn't Tommy Wingles essentially supposed to be Jamie McGinn's replacement when we traded him?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're on the bench in overtime for the Stanley Cup final, it's not good.
Well, and that goes back to, like I said, I mean, this is a guy who has seen his ice time reduced to 7 minutes a game. So obviously, on top of making too much money, on top of having guys passing you in the depth chart, you're also getting your own minutes shut down by the coach. So that's obviously a problem. Something that seems to be generating a lot of chatter because it's summer and all us bloggers have to scratch for things to write about. Some of the talk is the Sharks obviously don't have a backup goalie right now. I mean, obviously the expectation is that Aaron Dell is going to get the chance to take the job out of camp, but a lot of people are looking for, the Sharks to get that veteran guy. I don't see it happening, but what do you guys think of this topic, since it seems to be getting a lot of chatter? I'm going to start with Kevin.
Yeah, that's nice, but there have to be players that want to come to your team, and there has to be a decent player pool. Like, I think it goes back to the year that Doug Wilson got ripped apart for signing John Scott. Yeah, that offseason sucked, but what talent was there available? Like,
not John Scott?
Okay, I know, for example, but you got to have guys available that also want to come to your team. I mean, you can have interest in a guy, but they might not want to come here. Now, why wouldn't you want to come here? I mean, it's beautiful, beautiful summers. We wear teal. It's all, fans are great. It's awesome. But, it goes both ways here with players coming in.
We need a puppy in the locker room. Drew.
I actually think there is a little bit of a player pool available. Right now the Sharks have about $1 million in cap space, so I want them to try to look externally for it because I don't want another, Alex Stalock situation, let's play Jones for 70 games a season kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And right now I see like two plausible backup goaltenders. One of them would be Anders Lindback, who had an $875 cap hit last year with Arizona. And then maybe you can negotiate with Jonas Enroth, who had a 1.25 last year, but if you entice him with the Stanley Cup opportunity, maybe he goes for under. But if they can't swing either, they don't really have a choice. They'd have to go to Aaron Dell.
Eric.
Well, yeah, I'm right with you guys with that. If you can get Enroth, cool. If you can get Lindback, okay. Yeah, I'll be honest, I think it's Dell's backup bench spot to lose. I think it depends on who plays well in training camp. They know they have Jones ready to go, so they're not going to use him that much preseason. It will be a three-headed monster. Do you go with Aaron Dell? Do you try to get Troy Grosnick's back together, or do you have the girls start screaming and have Mantis Amarlis play in that? Back to you.
That was well played.
Set up.
That was fantastic.
For those of you listening, a Mantis Armalis graphic came up, and it was pretty awesome.
It was pretty awesome. We all screamed because, teal steel.
He's a cutie.
He is. Here's my thing. I mean, personally, I would like I think when you're going into this season, I think after this season you're losing pieces. You have to keep Brent Burns under contract, obviously. You're losing pieces, so I think that this is the year where you want that proven backup guy. Devil's advocate, though, Aaron Dell, how much more is he going to develop in the AHL? I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that he's an NHL backup, but I think he should get the opportunity based on his play last year to prove that he's not an NHL backup. And if he is, fantastic. I also think that if you give Dell a shot and it doesn't work out, there's more goalies out there, especially backup goalies. There's more backup goalies out there than jobs. You're going to have NHL backup worthy guys playing in the AHL that could probably be traded for a small price. I personally, I think Aaron Dell's earned the shot. And, well, it's not ideal. At least that you can have, you're going to be able to pick up a guy for, a low pick just to get better. Or, you toss I don't want to say, a crappy player. Maybe you package Tommy Wingles and you get yourself a backup and a pick or something. There's going to be guys that are still going to be there when the season starts, in my opinion. I don't know. Any thoughts?
The Sharks aren't in. They're in a situation that they don't have to choose right now. If they want to go with Dell, they can use Dell. There will be guys available in a couple of months, and even further down from that. If Dell isn't the guy by even January, I think the Sharks can get by and then pick someone up. So the heat isn't on, but I do agree with you guys that the Sharks will need to have someone capable by the playoff stretch run for sure, whether it's Dell or someone else. So.
No, yeah, and I agree. I mean, the Sharks have a lot of back-to-backs this year, and we don't want to see. I don't remember the exact number of back-to-backs. Maybe Eric has that off the top of his head. Because I know you guys
15, 16? 16, I think.
Something
like
stupid.
that.
Something stupid, yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, you want someone who can play those 15, 16 games. Among others, obviously. I don't think you just want to play your backup on just back-to-backs. I don't, that's not a recipe for success. I don't want to see Jones get, run down, obviously. But, I feel like, again, though, I mean, Dell did some really good things in the AHL last year, and maybe he gets rewarded for that. I'm not sure, but I think out of the guys that are in the AHL kind of fringe, I don't really see anybody else. I have no confidence in Troy Grosnick coming up and being the backup. I don't think Armalis is ready for the NHL game. I think he needs some seasoning in North America. And as much as Jamie Murray's kind of come out of nowhere and impressed people, Division III hockey, the NHL is a hell of a jump. So, I mean, I don't think it's as vital. I don't think it's as vital as people think it is. I don't think it's like Kevin said, this isn't a must-have right now solution. You don't have to do this right now. I think that we can get away, we can get away with at least giving Dell a shot if that's the way they want to go, which you have to think that's the plan. Or otherwise, why bring him back when you have you have such a logjam in the AHL for goaltending. It's too bad none of it's, NHL ready, but.
And honestly, it's like the way this team is right now, how far they went into the playoffs, how much better they've gotten just in this off season. If Dell totally tanks, it shouldn't matter. Like, let's say Dell has a losing record, he's below 500 kind of thing. It's not like the Sharks are going to be a borderline playoff team. They should be in the playoffs pretty comfortably, no matter how their backup goaltender does.
You're right, Drew. If Dell is the ultimate failure of the Sharks this season, he's not really the ultimate failure because he shouldn't be relied on to win or lose so many games. There would be other things going on. besides Dell, if that were the case.
And there's a few teams. There's like a very few teams in the NHL where if they lost their starters, their backup can be counted on to really carry the load.
Fortunately, one of them is Pittsburgh.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of them is Pittsburgh. The Islanders obviously proved to be another one. Although, again, this is the most I saw Greiss play ever. Can he do that year over year? I'm not sold. I mean, I know it's a nice story, especially from a former Shark, but I'm not sold.
Do you guys, before we move on, do you guys think that maybe they could be using the regular season as a tryout and / trade bait for that backup plan?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that,
like I said,
I think that
up for a little bit. You can have Armalis up for a little bit. You maybe have Dell up for a little bit.
You'd be running into waiver situations, I think, for Grosnick and Dell.
Yeah, that would be something that you'd have to consider too if you're going to start shuttling guys around. Is for some of them just by age, by virtue of their age, they're not, they're going to be they're going to have very few waiver eligible games left. Anything else before we move on from the Sharks' backup situation? All right.
Subscribe.
Subscribe. Yeah. Hey, subscribe.
First plug of the day.
Brad Richards retired. Any thoughts on Brad Richards? I thought that for the most part, this is a player I liked. I think the only real knock I had against him when he kind of LeBron'd it when he went to New York, had all the guys come to his ivory tower and pitch to him. But other than that, I always, Brad Richards is a player I always liked. He just made too much money in New York, and where have we seen that before 100 times? But I don't know. I think it's a good player. It's always tough to see players like it's. I don't like the number of players that are retiring. It makes me feel old, frankly.
It's scary because I think he was the finalist for the Calder with Nabby.
It makes me feel old.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
Any thoughts on Brad Richards? Anyone else?
I remember. I don't remember what class it was. I was in high school and looking up prospects and whatnot and going, oh, this Brad Richards guy put up 186 points in the queue. Now, mind you, it's the queue, but it's also 186 points. Yeah. I'm going, how is this guy not getting more play? And then his rookie year, actually his first 2 years, he put up 62 points each time. He's had a heck of a career, and hats off to him. And not to mention the fact that with that Rangers buyout, he's getting, I'm probably going to get the numbers backwards on this, but he's getting, I think, $14 million over the next 10 years to not play for the Rangers, or $10 million over the next 14 years or something. I would love to get $10 million to not play for the Rangers for the next 14 years.
Yes, send that money to Ian Reed. Right here in Canada.
Or at Puckguy14.
Or anyone. All right, so moving on. Now it's time to watch Drew get super fired up.
Oh, yeah.
I got an article coming out about this.
All right, so obviously...
We need an explosion graphic for Drew right now.
All right. Obviously, the great analytics debate is raging on. Last year we saw a lot of analytic-inspired hires in the NHL. We saw, Montreal picked up an analytics guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Tyler Dello, who was a really good follow on Twitter for a long time, went to the Oilers, both of which are no longer working for their respective teams. And it's funny because these are teams that both made just the most brutal trades, in my opinion, of the offseason or so far. I mean, you had the Subban for Weber trade, which I'm not saying Shea Weber is a bad defenseman. He's a great defenseman, but he is old and signed until he's 40 to an $8 million cap hit, whereas PK Subban is only signed until he's 33. So big difference there. I don't know. I guess Drew, since I know you're ready to go off on this, I'm gonna let you go.
I wrote this part, so forgive me for reading. But first, let me say this. No, analytics aren't everything in the game. There's an element to hockey that lies solely in the locker room during intermission or out on the ice during practices. And for Sharks fans, I think you can see that in Dinas Zubris, who really brought that veteran presence, and helped the younger guys develop, most notably probably Chris Tierney. Let me also say that Shea Weber is not a bad hockey player. He's an above-average defenseman who's going to play top 2 on most teams in the league. However, there's a reason analytics exists, and it's outright stupid to ignore them. We have access to more data than ever before that is meant to help teams make the best roster decisions possible. Why would you straight up ignore it? We can use mathematics to find someone's strengths, someone's weaknesses, how hard their competition is, where they have the puck, all that stuff. And then all just almost infinite. So why would you just piss it all away? Okay? I mean, advanced stats and analytics, it's the reason why we know Marc-Edouard Vlasic is as good of a defenseman as he is. That's the reason he's on Team Canada, is because of these new analytics that show how good he really is on the play. And sure, you can be like, yeah, but who wants to go into the corner against Shea Weber, quoted from a certain former NHLer who does not like me anymore. And you could say that all you want, but consider this. If he's bringing down his team's possession like he has done for the past 4 years, and he's ending up on the negative side of the plus-minus category like he's done for 3 of the past 4 years, then how scared a player is to go into the corner against him is completely irrelevant. Okay? Because you know who I'd be scared to go into the corner against? Roman Polak. Just think about that. Weber out.
Wait. Tell me I'm wrong. Did I just hear Drew say or are you essentially saying that you would rather take Polak over Weber?
No. I'm saying you can't use that argument. You can't say just because someone's afraid to go into the corner against Shea Weber means he's elite, because people are afraid to go into the corner against Roman Polak. No, I'm not making that argument. Don't worry.
Sure.
I can pull up the hero chart if you want.
I've read that. I have read this past little bit from some numbers guys that Shea Weber is a 4-5 defenseman. If Shea Weber is a 4-5 defenseman, what is Brendan Dillon?
Like a 9.
Like a 16.
Like basically playing back in the queue.
He's in beer league now. We've just demoted him past the AHL, the ECHL. If Shea Weber's a 4-5 defenseman, if that's the new measure of a 4-5 defenseman, then Brendan Dillon's a beer leaguer. Kevin, do you have anything you want to add? 'Cause I know you're a little numbers inclined as well.
Well, first off, that's for you, Drew. Actually, how about... There we go. That's what I give you. No, Brendan Dillon cannot be a beer leaguer because I'm a beer leaguer defenseman and I play the right side, which would mean I'd be stuck with Brendan Dillon. So, no.
If you could sign for $735,000, you're good.
XXXXXXX, like the absolute bottom of men's league at that point.
Great.
I couldn't play anymore.
Thanks. You're really making me feel better. No,
I'm just saying.
I don't have much to add on it. I'm not an analytics guy. Drew's our resident analytics guy. He does a great job, obviously. He knows his stuff. I love the rant on Twitter with and
the guy who blocked me.
Did he really?
Say who blocked
he blocked me.
Who blocked you?
Well, you make
great
points. Drew,
Yeah,
so.
you're allowed to say it.
Yeah, Patrick O'Sullivan blocked me.
Wow.
That's unfortunate for you.
No, it's celebration. I'm happy.
Eric, do you have anything you want to throw in before I kind of cap us off on this?
Well, it's kind of an interesting point in the NHL and the front office. You have the first, essentially, analytics guy be your general manager in John Heika for the Arizona Coyotes, and now you see Edmonton and Montreal, obviously two teams who had horrific seasons again, drop their analytics guys. You wonder if it's the old boys trying to do their thing in those two Canadian franchises, while Arizona tries to get out of their frustrations and goes a different direction.
Then you just created a great comparison to look at all season between Arizona, who brought in John Chaika, and Edmonton and Montreal, who let their guys go.
Right.
Now we'll see at least in Arizona and Edmonton being in the same division, we'll see head-to-head how each philosophy goes for them.
And somebody on Twitter, Sean Tierney, is a big analytics guy, brought up the point of what happens if Las Vegas gets an analytics guy right off the bat. What does that say to the future of the game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something that I think that's incredibly interesting with this debate is that, like you say, you got kind of like these old school approaches and these new school approaches, and it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Montreal obviously is going to be better next year because Carey Price is likely going to be healthy, and that is going to be a significant difference to that team because without Price, I mean, they really never had a goalie, that could really you can't replace Carey Price. Let's just put it like that. I could, we can make fun of the depth in the Montreal system all we want, but reality is you can't replace Carey Price. Period. So obviously I think they're going to be better, but I think Edmonton would be a team to watch because you look at Edmonton, and obviously Edmonton's kind of struggling, and you would think that Tyler Dell is a pretty well respected analytics guy. Like before he took the job with the Oilers, he's pretty a guy who got talked. I mean, he was most infamous for his little rant against his little sparring match with Steve Simmons, who is an absolute moron. So I think that when you're allowed to go on TV and argue with guys like Steve Simmons, obviously you know what you're talking about. So I think it's a big loss, and and like Drew said off the top, analytics aren't everything. I think that there's I don't mind analytics. I definitely look at them, but they're not everything, and I still think that there is a ways to go before these numbers get even better. Like I think we're still on the path to better numbers in analytics, but to completely disregard them, I think, is silly. To put all your weight in them and not and just be like, oh well, what's grit? What's don't talk to me about grit. I think you have to look at intangibles too, and I understand that you can't measure an intangible mathematically, but I think that they're still important. I don't think you need to, I don't think it's important so much that you need, guys to protect other guys or things like that, but I think that, there's still, intangibles are still important, and there's still guys that bring things to a team that you just can't measure mathematically. But, I can't write, and this is why we have Drew, because I can't write them, because I put myself to sleep trying to write analytics. I've tried, and it's not been good, and it's just not my strong point. So yeah, it is what it is. All right, moving on. This was going to be such a cool topic. Oh wait, no, we got one more topic first.
1 second.
Then we get something that's cool.
Then we get to something that's really cool. It could have been really cool, but then Maple Leafs had to go wreck it for us. Spoiler alert. So the NHL fired the arbitrator that they've had for over a decade. The guy's name is James Oldham, which is the best name ever for an arbitrator. Now, the most recent thing that Oldham arbitrated was the what's his name? Dennis Wideman suspension, which I thought was earned and then some. Like, so I guess you can we'll go around the table and you can tell me how you felt about the Wideman suspension, and then the arbitrator turning it over. So let's start with Eric. Eric, what did you think initially on the Dennis Wideman suspension? Now this is the guy that hit the ref in the back.
Right. This is when he hit the ref in the back. Supposedly he had a concussion at that point, so he that's almost like saying I'm pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. You're still responsible for your own actions. You can't tell me you can't tell what was it against? Was it against Vancouver or was it against Nashville?
I don't know. I just knew he hit a linesman.
There's a difference between a zebra and the opposing team. There's no excuse. No excuse. It should have been at least 20. Could have been more, in my opinion. Back to you, Ian.
Kevin.
I think he was concussed, but the fact that Dennis Wideman went out and said that had nothing to do with me hitting him, well, you just kind of shot yourself in the foot there, Dennis. So yeah, the suspension was earned for the fact that he hit someone you're not supposed to hit, no matter how angry you are at the guy, and then to refute your own argument for a deal or whatever. The only thing I hated how after they waited until his suspension was over, then they decided, nah, let's reduce it. Like, come on, guys, get your act together. It shouldn't take like half the season to get he's suspended or he's not.
Fair. True.
I mean, you can be concussed all he wants, but the bottom line is you hit a ref. I mean, you can't do that, all right? You can't just go out on the street and sucker punch a cop, all right? You can't just go out on the ice and freaking check a ref like Todd Bertuzzi style. Okay, so, yeah, 20 games, definitely worth it, and I don't know why this guy decided to cut it in half. There was no reason to cut it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the NHL where they're coming from here. I thought that, Kevin alluded to, I mean, obviously the process was an absolute joke. The fact that it took so long to get this, appealed through and then down to an arbitrator, like, it was brutal. But to me, there was no excuse for this hit. And reading social media after this hit it just reminded me how many knuckleheads still watch this game. Because you had guys being like, oh, well, he missed the call, so he got what he deserved. It's not how it works.
Not really.
You don't it's just you don't get away with things. You don't get to go hit a ref because you didn't get the call right. Like, maybe he did get hit. Now, he got kind of spun around and everything, but that doesn't give you the right to go hit a ref for missing the call. That's not how it works, And to me, it was just so blatant. I mean, you should see the reaction of the people on the bench. Like, it wasn't like he just the ref got too close and he didn't realize it was the ref. I mean, he skated to the ref, basically cross-checked him in the back and dropped him to the ice and then skated away. It's just, it was ridiculous. And I thought that I was really surprised when the arbitrator overturned the suspension and dropped it by 10 games. I thought it's a terrible precedent. So I guess I'm not really surprised that the NHL would get rid of the arbitrator because they felt that he misinterpreted, the CBA in making his ruling. But, it's a terrible precedent, and it'll be interesting to see what happens to the next guy because at the same time, though, it's kind of a scary precedent that, well, the NHL doesn't like the ruling. They can just, that's why you have a neutral arbitrator. So I guess that bothers me a little bit.
What I don't like is how the NHL now is basically painting themselves in this great light when they shouldn't be, because this incident happened in the NHL. Like, they should be doing a lot more to prevent situations like this. And for them to have James Oldham in, this role for so long, they obviously had faith in him to do his job accordingly. And then this incident now, they're like, blame Dennis Weidman, just not us. Mm-hmm. And then now it's blame James Oldham because he was, he's old. I don't know.
He's old. And he
blame James Oldham, get him out of here. No fault at the NHL at all on this? I don't buy that, but that's how it's going to be painted.
And you really have to, you have to take care. I mean, you need to take, if you're the NHL, I mean, you need to take care of your officials. You need your officials to be able, I mean, again, this isn't the ECHL. This is the NHL. This is, the big leagues. This is the biggest of all big leagues. And if you can't protect your officials in the NHL, what hope do you have in any other level of hockey? All right, so moving on. Austin Matthews finally got his deal signed, and thus goes the only thing that anyone in the media had anything to talk about right now. It happens. Going into this show, before I started writing the notes of the show, it was a lot of talk about Lamoriello basically saying, I ain't giving this guy any bonuses. I didn't give Larson bonuses. I ain't giving this guy bonuses because I'm Lou Lamoriello. But obviously not the case. Was this a big thing made out of nothing? I mean, considering it's all still the middle of July and they had plenty of time to get him under contract. Kevin, I'll start with you.
I hadn't heard anything about it until today, and mind you that I've been taking a little mental break from NHL stuff the last week or so. But I hadn't heard anything at all, so I don't know if this is just a Canadian media thing.
Probably.
But yeah, Austin Matthews hasn't been on the Maple Leafs for a month yet.
Yeah.
And it's 2 months until, well, mostly 2 months until training camp. So if it's September 8th or even September 1st, I'd be a little concerned. It's July 21st. Come on, guys. Nothing.
Yeah. I do live in the Maple Leafs echo chamber, so it's probably something that's been, that's been overplayed with, on any medium that I listen to. Drew, what are your thoughts on all this?
I mean, there was no way this is going to be like another Eric Lindros thing where he doesn't want to play for the Maple Leafs.
Right.
I mean, so yeah, I think that the media was kind of blowing this one up more than they needed to, because that's the storyline right now. Is, hey, Austin Matthews still hasn't signed. As for what the conversations were, from what I heard, the negotiation was actually pretty easy. Like, heard somewhere that it got done in 15 minutes kind of thing. So I don't know why they waited this long, but really it doesn't matter. He's signed.
Eric, anything you want to add to this?
Holy Mackinac, it's Toronto. I mean, let's be real here. It's Toronto. I think Jamie Baker has said it best. You are worse than you are better than you are, but you never are who you are, to paraphrase him. It's just another thing for the Toronto sports media to get all excited about throughout the boring off-season. What, are they going to go over to BMO Field to watch the Argonauts play? I mean,
I don't know.
They might. I mean, 12,000 only showed up last Wednesday for a game, but I digress. Look, they had to get a deal done. It's a simple deal. I'm a little surprised by the performance bonus amount. So there's going to be an interesting way of how it works. I mean, if he doesn't hit the bonuses right away, does that mean that gives the Leafs room to make some moves later in the season? I mean, that remains to be seen. I mean, heaven forbid, though, if he gets super hot and the Leafs are challenging for a playoff spot, you got an interesting situation at hand.
Yeah, I mean, going into this thing, obviously there's a history with Lou Lamoriello and the way he handled things in New Jersey. Obviously, Lou Lamoriello has a reputation. He doesn't want his players to have facial hair and just all kinds of stupid things. So it's based on that history. You could say, okay, well, this is a guy who, basically Adam Larson's camp wanted, a bonus-laden contract, and he said, no, you're not getting any of it. And Larson at the time, I think, was a 5th, 6th overall pick.
Something, yes, 6th, I think.
So I can see where people were concerned, especially with the idea that, he was just going to tell Matthews no, but you're not in New Jersey anymore. This is the Toronto Maple Leafs. You're in the, it's not like they're like strapped for cash and don't have the money for Austin Matthews. They have the cap space for it, for one, and they have the money. They can pay, you can give Austin Matthews a performance contract. I mean, this guy, I think, this is a guy who I think is going to be really good. I mean, he was the top pick. It was basically a toss-up between him and Laine, depending on what you needed as a team. The Leafs needed a center. They got Austin Matthews. He's going to be a solid player, I think. And this is the guy you give the bonus contract to. Especially when you got guys ahead of him getting full bonuses in their contract. I mean, you're Toronto. Spend the money.
Yeah,
it's like this guy should be a star player too, so he should be worth more than $925.
Right.
So I mean, just give him the bonuses. Just don't piss him off.
How much do you think how much do you think Shanahan had to do with this, too?
That was going to be what I was going to say.
Sorry, Kevin.
No. You beat me to it.
I mean, it's not like, I think Lou has a bunch of pull there. He has some pull there, but I do think at the end of the day, this is something you just can't screw up if you're the Leafs. And Hockey Jerk on Twitter just tweeted at me and said that, if Toronto did decide to really, really push at him, he could have went back to Europe. He doesn't have a contract. His NHL rights are owned by the NHL, but that doesn't stop him from playing elsewhere. He had no contract, so it wasn't like the Leafs had. I mean, obviously it's the NHL, but he could have still made a pretty penny paying. You know, he could have went back to Zurich. He could have played in Sweden. He could have played pretty much anywhere he wanted, and probably someone would have paid him decent amount of money to do it. So I think that's, you know,
Could have been traded for a first-round pick in Hurdle.
that he could have been traded, and then, you know, the Leafs would win the cup, and the team he got traded to wouldn't. That happens sometimes when you trade a top pick. All right, so let's move on to our second segment. I don't know how long we've been on, but I don't care.
That's the spirit.
It means that we love you.
That's right.
And if you love us, subscribe.
That's right. Subscribe to the channel. Before I move on to the next thing, obviously, look, if you like what you're listening to, if you like other things that are Pucknology, you can subscribe to this channel for the Writers Room. You can also go on iTunes. You can go on Google Play. You can go on SoundCloud, and you can get basically all your podcasts in one place in audio format. You can listen to them, you know, on your own speed. You don't need to have a YouTube, you know, open on your phone trying to chew your data up to listen to all the silly things that we say. You can do this all, you know, in a podcast because all our stuff's in audio now. So just go to look for Pucknology Podcasts on your favorite podcatcher. If it is not on your favorite podcatcher, let me know. I will make sure it gets there. But, you know, for sure the big ones, iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, they're all there.
And we also sometimes write on Pucknology.net.
That's right.
Sometimes.
And sometimes. Right now we're slacking hard. It's awesome. All right. So the thing that I want to do now is kind of start like a division preview, and I figure it's just decent content that we can basically come on here, we can say stuff about, and then kind of just, you know, drag our butts through the summer. So we're going to start, obviously, in alphabetical order, which means we are starting with the Anaheim Ducks. Here's the additions for the Ducks, additions and extensions so far. Sami Vatanen got an extension. They signed Holzer, Jared Boll. They traded for Jonathan Bernier. They signed Mason Raymond, and Randy Carlyle is their new head coach. Unsigned, they have a couple of unsigned restricted free agents, Ricard Raquel and Hampus Lindholm, and if I'm a Ducks fan, I'm kind of annoyed that those guys are hanging out there in the wind a little bit, especially Lindholm. Your subtractions are goaltender Frederick Anderson, David Perron, Chris Stewart, Jamie McGinn, Brandon Peary, who is not qualified, surprisingly, to me anyway, and Bruce Boudreau is obviously fired as the head coach. Your notable prospects, in my opinion, there's other ones I'm sure too, and Kevin will add anything that I miss, but in my opinion, the big prospects in the system right now are Nick Ritchie, Max Jones, and Shea Theodore. Your key contracts going forward that are obviously eating up a lot of cap, you've got Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaff both signed to, you know, $8 million, $8.6 million, and $8.25 million respectively until 2021. Ryan Kessler, which is probably one of the worst deals in the NHL right now, $6.875 until 2022. Sami Vatanen just re-signed his deal, $4.875 till 2020, which I think is a great deal for Sami Vatanen. And you have Kevin Bieksa until 2018 for $4 million. I guess just overall thoughts we'll start with. Oh, and trade bait, obviously. Cam Fowler seems to be on the market. $4 million contract hit. He makes the same as Kevin Bieksa, which is kind of funny. Slushy says John Gibson. I don't consider John Gibson much of a prospect anymore. He's been on the big club for a while now. I think he's played enough games not to be a prospect, but I guess you could include John Gibson. Overall thoughts on the Ducks based on everything I just said. Kevin, I'll start with you.
Where would you like me to begin with the Ducks? My overall.
Where do you want to begin?
Well, I think this is kind of the year for the Ducks, just like it is with the Sharks. Not so much contract-wise, but just wait. See, now I've already lost my train of thought. Come back to me, because I swear this is the year that.
I'll pick up from
Save
Kevin,
him, please.
Yes, no. Kevin's on the right track here. It's starting to be a do or die thing for the Ducks. You know, they gotten to the third round once with this group of Getzlaf, Perry. I mean, they've gone through a multitude of goaltenders now. Is John Gibson the man? It remains to be seen. Is Randy Carlyle going to bring back his 2007 Cup-esque staff? It remains to be seen. There's a lot of ifs in the organization, and you hit it right on the head, Ian. To have Lindholm and help me out here, and Raquel still unsigned as restricted free agents. Correct me. When's the availability that they can be changed from RFA to UFA?
Is it like December?
They were qualified.
Oh, they're qualified.
No, once you qualify them, you retain their rights for however long.
It's what it is if they're not signed by December 1st, I think it is, that they cannot play this year.
That's right.
So nobody can really. So like San Jose couldn't give him an offer sheet and be like 1.2.
Well, they could, but if he's not going to sign with that with the Ducks, he's not going to sign for that with the Sharks.
Well, I'm just throwing out numbers here, but I mean, it's the Ducks are a curious case where they are poised to build for a championship. They were supposed to be the Sharks' second-round opponent, and they got upset by an upstart Predators team. While they have great highs, they have great lows. And talking with some Ducks fans, because they are probably the nicer of the SoCal fan bases.
Absolutely.
They're still trying to figure out what the heck to do with Getzlaf. I mean, it's kind of funny because it's like you have Marleau and Thornton, and everybody's complaining about, well, Marleau's on a cold streak, and Thornton doesn't want to shoot. Well, now in Anaheim, it's Corey Perry's been on a cold snap, and Getzlaf doesn't want to shoot. And you're trying to find the right goaltender right now. And you have an aging D-man. It's just over and over. It's just San Jose South all over again. And I think Ducks fans are like, okay, if they can't get it done, let's try and find somebody that can and move some pieces out of the way.
Okay, Drew.
See, I think Anaheim's going to trend downwards this season. I mean, look, they fired a head coach who won them, 3 or 4, I think, Pacific Division championships in a row. Okay, they haven't agreed to the deals with Lindholm and Raquel yet. Now, I will think they will be signed, but there may be some relation issues there in the future. Their bottom 6 isn't that great, and their blue line still has Kevin BX on it, which I think is hilarious. Which, fun fact, BX has started 62.1% of his shifts in the offensive zone and was still negative in Corsi, for all my Corsi fans out there. He absolutely wrecked in possession.
And just think, he could have been a Shark.
Yeah, I'm glad he was a Shark. For 2 second-round picks, he was almost a Shark.
So, I mean, and I think there's a lot of, after the firing of Bruce Boudreau, I think there's a lot of behind-the-scenes issues right now, similar to what the Sharks had last off-season kind of thing, or 2 years ago. So that's my thoughts. I think they're going to trend downwards pretty bad.
Yeah, Kevin, do you have anything else?
I don't know if they're going to trend downwards pretty badly, but I think you're on the right course of action there, because I don't like the comparison between the guys they've lost and the guys they brought in. Like, McGinn and Peary are both serviceable forwards. Perron obviously is a lot of offense to him. You brought in Jared Boll, Mason Raymond. I think we all agree that Boudreau is a better coach than Carlisle, or at least I think so. Goaltending, Anderson, I'll take him any day over Bernier. I don't think Bernier's as bad as people think. I think he was in Toronto too long. But yeah, the thing for the Ducks is that this is their year, but they do have a lot of prospects, like good prospects, and if they're kind of teetering mid-season, they could package some guys up and get them out for better players, or just have a total youth movement, because I think their prospects are that good that they could have a youth movement and not fall too far.
And here's the thing with Anaheim too: is after they lost that Game 7, there was this whole thing with the GM saying, "Oh, there's going to be huge changes," and there really hasn't been. I mean, you lost Anderson, but that was expected because Gibson was going to take the spot. And I mean, I guess the Boudreaux firing, but really in terms of the lineup, it's all the same core players. They haven't made anything different.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm with Drew actually. I think the Ducks are trending down. I think that they've made some really curious decisions as a puck. Sorry, curious to, as a team that is they have an internal cap. This is a team that can't spend to the cap because the ownership won't let them. So when you're an internal cap team and like this Kessler deal, like I said, it's probably one of the worst deals in the NHL. I know Ryan Kessler's not super, he's not significantly old, but that body has a lot more mileage on it than his age would suggest. I mean, I put this right up there with the Lucic deal as just terrible deal for guys that just have, based on a reputation and not on anything substantial that they actually have done lately. So I don't like that Ryan Kessler deal at all. And that Ryan Kessler deal, when you look at it, I mean, you had to move a guy like Frederik Andersen, who, maybe this is my hot take, but Frederik Andersen, I would take Frederik Andersen over John Gibson. And maybe people are going to tell me I'm dumb for that, but I would take Andersen over Gibson any day of the week because any time that Gibson has been offered to take the net, Frederik Andersen has taken it back. And now it's going to be interesting because Gibson's obviously doesn't have that safety net anymore. I don't foresee Jonathan Bernier overtaking him for the starter role in Anaheim. But, man, it's just a mess. And then you bring Carlisle in, and then, you see the players that come in after Carlisle's hired, as Kevin was saying, the Jared Bulls, the Mason Raymonds. Like, what? I don't even know what this team is supposed to be anymore.
It's Vancouver South. That's what they're doing.
Oh,
man, we got a short house in. Damn it. I promised there would be no short houses on the show, and that promise has been broken.
That was a lie.
I don't know what this team is anymore, and this is a team that last year I thought was going to demolish the West going away, and this year I think they might be a bubble team. Where do you guys see them divisionally in the picture? They're probably in, but and they're probably taking a division spot. But I'm not super confident going away that this is definitely for sure a playoff team. So where do you guys have the Ducks going into finishing in the division? Just obviously based on nothing because no one's played any games yet. Kevin.
I'm gonna put them as third, behind the Sharks and behind the Kings. But third asterisk. Last year, I thought the Coyotes were going to sneak in there, and it didn't happen. And I think it could happen again this next year, but I'm going to err on the side of caution here and say the Ducks will beat out the Coyotes, at least for that third spot in the Pacific.
Drew.
I know I said the Ducks are going to fall pretty hard, but I still think they're going to take second behind the Sharks, with Calgary taking third, actually.
No?
I mean, the reason for the Ducks taking second is purely because the Pacific, honestly, isn't that good anymore. I mean, the Kings lost Lucic. They still have issues with their blue line kind of thing. And I don't see any of the other teams ready to take over Anaheim just yet. I think the Sharks are going to jump ahead of them, and Anaheim will take the number 2 spot.
Eric.
Yeah, I mean, Drew, you hit it on the head. The division is not that tough as much as it used to be. Man, I think the Ducks are out. I think the Coyotes will come in and steal that third spot from them. And I mean, they might get a wild card, but I think there might be just too much turmoil in Anaheim. And if it gets really bad and you trade Perry or Getzlaf, it could get really bad really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the team to watch this year is Calgary. Calgary is going to mess everything up. Arizona might turn a corner too. It'll be interesting to see what happens with those teams. But I think the the Flames are the real wild card in this situation. Not wild cards; they're going to finish in the wild card spot. I think that they are the team that could find themselves in the top three in the Pacific. It's not going to be a strong division, and as much as I like the Sharks win next year, I'm not sold they're just going to run away with it either. Sharks played a lot of hockey. And the Kings again. This is the Kings. I mean, they always seem to me like they're on the wrong way, and then they go and win another Stanley Cup. So I don't know what to tell you about the Kings right now. I guess we'll wait till we do the Kings. But I think that the Ducks, maybe they finish third. Maybe they're a wild card team. I'm not sure. It's going to be really. I know it's kind of wishy-washy, but I just think the Flames are a much better team, and they should be a threat. I think that Arizona should be better. I don't know what's going to happen in Edmonton. Does Edmonton show any signs that they're going to be better? Well, maybe they won't be injured the whole time. So
I don't know. Without Taylor Hall, I don't know.
How much is Nick Ritchie going to affect Anaheim next year, assuming he's going to be a full-time player?
That's another good question. Are they going to put Nick Ritchie in a spot where he can be Nick Ritchie, or are they going to just bury him on the third and fourth line? Right. I think Nick Ritchie, if you put him in the top six, I mean, when I watched Nick Ritchie, and I know, Kevin, you said something similar, I mean, this is a guy that always stood out when I watched the farm team. I can't remember the goals.
San Diego Gulls.
The Gulls, right? Yeah. Anytime I watched the Gulls, they were, Nick Ritchie was a guy that always stood out, but on the Ducks, not really visible, but I think it was because he was just playing sheltered minutes, just kind of getting the ropes. If they give him a chance to shine, I think that he could be a big factor and he could be really good. But the division isn't strong, and there's so much weakness in the division this year that it's jump ball.
Here's one thing I have: if Anaheim has a complete tire fire, do we pretty much already know who they're replacing Carlisle with? With Dallas Eakins.
Dallas Eakins didn't have great numbers with San Diego. I mean, now mind you, I'm only going by the numbers and not by coaching ability, because Dallas Eakins has proven with the Marlies years and years ago that he could lead a great team.
Right.
But I don't think I would go with Paul McLean or Trent Yanni. I still think Trent Yanni should be an NHL coach. I want to see what he has to do a second time around. But
as the year progressed, though, the one thing, the Gulls were such a powerhouse at the start of the season, and they had so many people called up by the end of it that it kind of really affected their ability to compete.
That's
true. I don't think that's 100% on. I mean, if you lose everybody. If you lose your top players to the NHL club, that hurts. I mean, you lost your top defenseman to the NHL club. That kind of stuff. I mean, that's gonna catch up to you, unfortunately. And I don't know if that's 100% on Dallas Eakins rather than, I mean, you look at a guy like Roy Sommer, who, I know we all have mixed feelings on, but you look at some of those teams that he was forced to coach, and you have to have at least a little sympathy for him. He says no.
All right.
Just no.
Oh.
No comment.
I thought.
I will say this about Summers, though, is out of everybody who's on the Sharks, there are only 3 players who have spent more than 60 games in the NHL with Summers. Anyone who's played more than 60 games, except for those 3, have been career AHLers.
Right. No, and I'm not disputing that fact, and I'm not suddenly a Roy Sommer guy. I'm just saying that for a long time the Sharks farm system was just destitute, completely barren. And that's it's hard to develop a player when you surround him with absolute garbage in the AHL and don't give him anyone to play with in the AHL. You can't develop somebody when you're expecting this kid to just be the best player on the team and carry garbage around. All right, so Laurel wants to put the Ducks in the dumpster fire category. They could be.
Right there with Dallas.
Right there with Dallas. I don't know if Dallas is going to be a dumpster fire.
Depends on how many goals Nima lets in.
That's true. All right. So any other thoughts on the Ducks before we kind of wrap up? Go to the last segment here.
Because I know you're not huge on Ryan Kessler, and I get that the contract is bad, but right now Kessler is very valuable to the Ducks. I mean, he scored double what any other Duck player scored in the playoffs, and he was their third leading scorer in the regular season. He's got his leadership qualities, yada yada yada. But I mean, like the Ducks, because of like the fact that they always limit their budget every year.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that by the time those bad years of the contract for Kessler come, he'll already be on another team?
I think potentially. Here's the problem with Ryan Kessler to me, and you're right. I mean, he did put up good offensive numbers for the Ducks last year, but this guy is made of popsicle sticks and white glue. He is a hit away from being out half the season.
Like Ryan Callahan.
Yeah, like we've seen this we saw this in Vancouver. We saw where, Kessler would just get hurt. I mean, he plays a very, very, very physical game that takes a huge toll on the body. And players like that, they don't last forever. And they don't last until they're 40. So it's something that obviously would be concerning to me with that contract, is that it's a lot of money that you could lose, and then you can grab players on the IR, but you can't. Are you going to replace him adequately? Probably not. I don't know. Anyone else? Drew, you have any final thoughts on this?
No, I pretty much said everything I wanted to say.
All right. So to hell with Anaheim. All right. So. We'll just kind of go to our final thing here. Just a couple of other quick thoughts. What did you guys? Did you see the mem mask for Armalis? Any quick thoughts on the awesome mem mask?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you have to go see it. I'll put a link on the. I will put it on the blog post tomorrow, which means I won't, but I will. Promise. Anyone else have any thoughts on the mask? I love it.
Wait, is that the? Whoa, hello.
Here we go. Watch this.
That guy's got it.
Damn.
That's pretty sweet.
Oh yeah, okay. That's what wind blew my door open. That mask is awesome. I love that mask. I saw it at training camp or prospect camp, whatever you want to call it. His gear was pretty sweet.
There you have it. Whoa. All right.
Whoa.
That was trippy.
To kind of describe it for our audio listeners, the mask has two leaping sharks on the side with the fin logo in the middle through a teal stripe. The reason why it's called a meme mask is basically he has tiny little meme caricatures all over the place, and in fact some of them are glow in the dark. So it's a very creative mask for sure.
Nice.
Back to you, Ian.
Awesome.
Where does it rank compared to Optimus Rhymes' mask?
There's nothing's gonna beat that. That's
okay.
Even greater than Hayward's mask. Like the Hayward mask was always like, as much as I hate Brian Hayward, that mask was like always my favorite until the Reimer mask. The Reimer mask destroyed it.
Speaking of masks, at the game used equipment sale, they had a Evgeny Nabokov mask on sale for $6,000.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I didn't. There were some other masks. The Stalock one that I really liked, the really colorful one, that was there. I didn't see the price. They had I think they had a random Carter Hutton one or something like that. But yeah, Nabby's mask for $6,000. I wonder if anyone picked that thing up.
Eric, we need this mask. Just open the.
Love that mask.
Which mask? Oh, I'm sorry. Which mask?
The Nabokov mask for $6,000. Open the Pucknology
sure.
piggy
The
bank.
closest thing I'm ever gonna get is the mini mask for Nabby's.
I'll get right on that for sure.
Awesome.
Yes, I'll pass on the Joe Thornton jersey and the Heritage Logan Couture jersey I had to try on, and then end up settling for an Adam Burrish jersey at the equipment sale.
That's a decrease.
That's a wow. That hurts, buddy. All right. Anyone in the chat, if you have any questions you want to ask us before we wrap up, I'm going to go on to one more thing, and then if we have any questions, we'll take them, and then we are going to get the heck out of here. So, someone added the NBC NHL schedule to the list. I have not seen the schedule yet, so someone please educate me.
It's the
Basically,
Chicago Blackhawks.
yeah. No, seriously. A quarter of their season will be on NBC or NBCSN this season. It's absolutely ridiculous. For Nashville, I guess getting to Game 7 in the second round only gives you 2 games on the national network. The quote-unquote most exciting team, Dallas Stars, are only getting 4. Uh, you get to see Austin Matthews one time, and that's at the Centennial Classic. You get to see the biggest free agent signing, Milan Lucic, and the Connor McJesus, a total of 0 times on NBC and NBCSN. In fact, they're one of a couple of teams, I believe Winnipeg and Ottawa are also teams that will not get any love, along with the Vancouver Canucks and Calgary Flames.
Yeah, Canada got shafted.
But San Jose is well represented.
I saw a meme on Twitter earlier, and it was like Chicago versus Pittsburgh, Chicago versus Pittsburgh, Chicago versus Chicago, Chicago versus the Ice Hogs. So I assume there was a lot of Chicago on it.
There's a total of 21 Chicago games.
Wow.
There's a total of for a team who lost in the first round, but they're owned by the parent network. Philly is on 20 times.
Wow.
Washington is on 14. Pittsburgh's at 15. Rangers at 15, obviously. Red Wings and Bruins top the Atlantic Division with 13 and 17, respectively. The Blues are on 12. Wild are on 12. Avalanche are on 9. But the Sharks are the most seen Pacific Division team. Thank goodness NBC owns Comcast Sportsnet. Let's just put it that way. And of course, that will mean that opening night between Sharks and Kings will be on NBCSN, which means that will not get off
7:55.
7:55 start for opening night.
Sweet. Well, I'm excited for that.
Piggybacking off what? Sorry, what was that?
No, I just rocket in the chat saying that 3 hours of the broadcast logo being broadcast, which I also saw on the list.
They'll just have a recurring repeat of Chelsea Dagger. That's the best.
Drew, anything on the any thoughts on the NBC schedule?
I like it. The whole Chicago thing is just hilarious. There's also like a Chicago Christmas special, I think, that's on that.
Yes,
it's on that.
Chicago.
But yeah, it's like 25% of the Blackhawks games will be shown on national TV, and 20% of the games that will be shown on national TV will be Blackhawks games. And I think we touched on this in an earlier Pucknology Writers Room, where it's like you're showing Chicago, who really already has the interest of the NHL, but you're shafting teams like Arizona or Carolina, these non, traditional market teams who really need that viewership. So
yeah,
I think they're missing out on the opportunity to sell some of these other teams who have young talent and are exciting.
Yeah, and I think that you could use Chicago. I mean, you don't have to show Chicago versus Detroit or Chicago versus Pittsburgh. Or I mean, obviously these games are teams that people are going to want to watch on national television. And obviously there is an advertising aspect, and obviously you need people to be watching to get advertising dollars. But at the same time, why not show Chicago play the Coyotes? Like, people are still going to tune in because it's the Blackhawks, but then you're also going to see this exciting team with, this exciting team that should be the Coyotes with these young players that are coming up, the Max Domies and the Anthony Duclairs and maybe Dylan Strome. I mean, there's some really, really good talent there. Christian Dvorak, I mean, that people should be excited about as hockey fans in general. And yeah, it's just dumb. All right.
Buffalo versus Edmonton. There are absolutely no players we would want to see on either of those teams.
No. Well, I get it, though. I mean, look, I get the Canadian team aspect. Canadian teams do not draw ratings well in the States. Like, even, unless you're talking like a outdoor game between Detroit and Toronto, it's not really a big ratings winner for them. I get that there's a lot less interest in Canadian teams, especially when, up here we have all the stuff. I don't know why Eric's just stuck on Eric. I don't know, guys. I'm sorry. I broke it. All right. Okay, so I had a couple questions here that we will get to. We kind of answered in the chat already, but Sleepy Mofo is like, what's with the lack of afternoon Saturday games at the Tank? Only one, Nashville for this upcoming season. I think we can all agree that the issue is the Barracuda.
Yeah.
But that's bad. That's bad because, one, that means there's going to be a lot of doubleheaders because the AHL schedule hasn't come out yet. But we all know
Right.
there's going to be a lot of doubleheaders, which means the Barracuda are going to chop up the ice before the Sharks game instead of after. Not to mention that the Sharks as a lead-in to the Barracuda is a lot better than the Barracuda lead into the Sharks.
Oh, but if you're a 365
Absolutely.
holder, you get Barracuda tickets for, as a part of your deal. So why not go to? No, I completely agree. I think it's a missed opportunity. One, I agree. It kills the ice. Two, the Barracuda would, the one Barracuda game that I watched, not that I only watched one, but one that I remember watching was after a Sharks game, and it was the most people in the seats that I had seen.
It was the highest attended game outside of opening night of the entire season.
Right. I mean, you would
Yep.
think like the bell would go off and you'd say, "Hey, look, we can lead in with the Sharks and then have the Barracuda play." People are probably going to stick around and go to that game. They're not going to do vice versa.
I was a prime example of that. There was a 1 p.m. Sharks Rangers game. I'm pretty sure this is the one that Kevin's talking
Yes,
about.
it was.
And the game ended at 3:45. Me and Gentry, shout out to Gentry by the way, went to the Brit. Had dinner, came back, got our Nikolai Goldobin bobblehead, watched a 6 p.m. Barracuda
Iowa Wild.
yes, Iowa Wild with San Jose State former San Jose State goaltender Marty Moody as the backup for Iowa. That works.
Yep.
That absolutely works. And considering how many people you're pushing to have season tickets for the Barracuda with the 365 plan, as we saw at Select a Seat Night, I mean, it's just one thing after another. You have to get butts in the seats, and if you're going to make them wait for a Sharks game as opposed to wait for a Barracuda game,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's going to work.
Yeah. No, I agree. And see, Mofo, again, this is going to be a better AHL team this year, at least on the front end. There's some exciting players to watch. Back end's a little dicey still, but I still think it's still AHL hockey. And I think that, while knuckleheads like me would sleep outside the building to watch the Barracuda play because I want to see these guys, I don't know. I still think if you go on to, if you have the Sharks leading in, it gives you more of a reason to stick around downtown rather than come downtown early for a Barracuda game, go out and have a Shark game. I just think it's, if people are already downtown because of a Sharks game, they're probably sticking around to watch Barracuda, especially all these 365 holders who apparently get their tickets because that's the way it works. So last question, and then we probably should get out of here because I'm sure we've ran way too long, like always.
Hour and a half.
Hey, there you go. One question was asked in the chat and this is a terrible question. We could probably do a whole show on this question, to be completely honest. How likely are we or how likely do you feel it is we will head into another lockout at the end of this CBA?
How many years before they can open it up?
I don't know, 2020 something.
I think it's 2020 is when the CBA is
that sounds right.
negotiated again.
Yeah, I feel like that is a thing.
A lot of players apparently feel like it's going to happen because they have the adjustment for it in their contracts. Like I think for that season, a whole bunch of people have like $1 million in like salary, and then like a $7 million signing bonus kind of thing.
Right. So
because they get that no matter what, whether they play or not.
Yeah. Lucic's contract it's not that drastic, but Lucic is like that.
Yeah.
$6 million in a signing bonus or something like that
per
year.
Look at Stamkos, $1 million, and the rest is signing bonus every year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's the analytics guy on TSN who, as I've mentioned before, I'm not a big fan of. I think Drew does a way better job than that guy. But he brought up the lockout aspect coming up, and have to agree. I think it is going to happen 100%, unfortunately. It's like that's the NHL thing now.
Yep.
You can't just negotiate the CBA. You have to have a work stoppage first.
Right.
The rule.
Right.
Well, and that's the thing that frustrates every hockey fan, us included, is like, you guys don't talk about getting down to the CBA business pretty much up until September. Up till September, and then Bettman is all. Wait, I'll refer to Kevin as my Bettman impersonator.
Is there a trade to announce, Kevin?
What were you gonna? We have an update to announce. The National Hockey League has locked out the players here, but don't worry, it'll be a really quick, short one, and don't worry, because we'll give you guys all a free T-shirt when it's all said and done. So thank you. That's my press conference.
Fantastic. Yeah, here's my take. I think that there's, the last lockout, in my opinion, was incredibly unnecessary. I really thought that the league just got greedy, frankly. And they locked the players out to basically try and just squeeze a little bit more out of them. And the players were making more of the, now the pie split down the middle. I thought, I was really surprised how many people turned on the players in the last lockout who really, in my opinion, they just got their backs put to the wall.
Yeah.
The lockout, the only thing that they really needed to accomplish the last lockout was that they needed to put a term on contract limits. And I think that, and I feel like the players would have eventually gone for that, but it wasn't just that. They wanted, the owners wanted to make, get the majority of the revenue, even though there's escrow. It's just, to me, if there's another lockout, it's going to be unnecessary. It's just, there's no reason for it. I mean, if the financials don't work under this system where you're splitting the money 50-50, I don't know how to work it. And personally, I am tired of the league screwing themselves over. Like, these owners go and they sign all these stupid deals, and then they need to be saved from themselves. And the fans suffer because of it. And, and we're dumb. Hey, look we're gluttons for punishment. We lost a whole season. We came back. We lost a half a season. We came back. I mean, I've personally lived through, I believe, 4 work stoppages now in the NHL. 3-4 work stoppages in the NHL. Like, I've come back every time. So it's, it's unfortunate, but I just feel like that's their thing now. They're going to lock out the players and just try and eat away at that 50-50 split until they get a number that they like. And I don't think they'll ever get to a number that they like. And they're just going to keep doing it. And I think, part of me also wonders this coming lockout, and we'll kind of end on your thoughts on this. Do you guys feel like we're going to see a system where they becomes like a soft cap, where you see like a luxury tax come in? Because I think if you're a Toronto, if you're a Detroit, if you're a New York, if you're a Philly, you're probably, getting tired of not being able to spend to your potential. And, everyone cries about parity. The hard cap makes parity. There's just no way around it. It was funny when, the end of the NBA was like, oh, there's no parity. Yeah, because you have a soft cap in the NBA. Your cap's not hard. If you had a hard cap in the NBA, there'd be a lot more parity. So I guess that's kind of what your thoughts. Do you guys foresee coming in the future any chance that the NHL goes to a soft cap system? I guess I'll go with Kevin first.
I do think there's something to be said about the soft cap. I think that if anything, it could prevent a lockout in 2027, because it might appease the owners to where the ones that want to spend will be able to spend. The players obviously will be happy if the owners are wanting to spend more. So, yeah, I think it's a good call.
Eric?
No, absolutely not. You're essentially going to give the nightmare of 1994, 95, and 2004, 2005 all over again if you go to a soft cap. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be fine and dandy, but okay, so you're going to have Philly sign everybody. You're going to have the Rangers pay $13 million to Austin Matthews in a few years. Then you're going to have, the up and comers all essentially suddenly go to Detroit, New York, Philly, Chicago, all over again, and then you're going to have the Canadian teams cry foul to the point where Edmonton's going to want a new arena in Houston, and Calgary is going to move to wherever, and Winnipeg is going to be a second franchise in Arizona.
That's what I was going to go with.
I mean, you set up a soft cap, you're asking for trouble. That's the whole reason we got into the lockout mess, 20 plus years ago and 10 plus years ago. You do a soft cap, you are going to ruin the league. Otherwise, you can do AJ's plan and just go down to a 6-league team.
True.
Yeah, I agree with Eric on this one. It's like if you have that soft cap, then teams are getting better just because people like watching them. And I feel like that shouldn't be the case, because that's how you're going to see the death of teams like Carolina or the death of teams like Arizona. And when you're in a mode where you're trying to expand the game,
Mm-hmm.
a soft cap isn't going to help that. In fact, it's going to discourage it. You're going to slowly regress back to those original 6 teams, because those are the teams that are going to be able to be competitive.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely see that argument. I just think that if you look at from just like a business perspective, obviously, if you have a soft cap, anything over is obviously going to be kicked back to those bottom dwelling teams, and it's not. I'm not saying that's good for hockey, and I'm not saying any of this is good for hockey. Personally, I am pro hard cap. I think that the game, in my opinion, has never been better. But again, these are teams that if you have teams struggling, and whether the NHL wants to admit it or not, teams are struggling. And if you had that extra income to kind of slide back under the table to the struggling teams, maybe they're a little more solvent than they are now. But no, I mean, I'm saying that there should be a soft cap. I just more just something that I think that we might start hearing about going forward. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to. I know we got to wrap this up, but it's like you look at the NBA; they have a luxury tax.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially you already know what's going to happen in the NBA next season. It'll be Golden State versus Cleveland Part 3. We don't need to watch the NBA. You look at Major League Baseball, who has a luxury tax, and you see a team, for most of us in the backyard with the Oakland A's, they're just stuffing their pockets because they don't want to do anything with it.
Right.
I mean, that's what you're looking at. Anyways, back to you, Ian.
All right, so if you liked what you heard on this show, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're trying to do this weekly since Steel Tinted Glasses has gone quiet for the next little bit. If you like what you hear on any of our shows and you want to be able to listen to all of our shows, especially going forward in the regular season, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for an audio feed on SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes. Any other podcatcher. Again, if it's not on a podcatcher that you use, I want to know, because I want to get it on that podcatcher for you. So definitely let me know. Other than that, be sure to read Pucknology.net. I promise we'll write something and we'll make stuff there.
There's something coming out tomorrow.
Hey, there you go. Boom.
Analytics rant.
Yes, excellent. So this is basically, we'll be back next week. We're going to look at probably some more news and notes around the league. We're going to take a look at the Arizona Coyotes. Who knows? I mean, every time I say stuff, it's going to be silly. I'm trying to we are going to cover the World Cup. We're still trying to work out the plan for that. Maybe after Dark comes out of retirement. I don't know. Maybe it's just us. I don't care. So it basically, thank you for watching. You can find me. I am Ian Reed. You can find me on Pucknology.net doing everything, or at least not doing everything, but I have a hand in everything. I don't want to make it sound like no one else does anything. And I'm rambling. At I Read Pucknology on Twitter. Kevin, tell them where they can find you.
Well, I am at KevinLacey22 on Twitter. I am a Pucknology contributor. I'm also a professional, I guess you could say, announcer. I just had that premiere wrestling show last week. It's available on YouTube. Right now I have no gigs coming up, so if you need a sports announcer, who to talk to, San Jose Barracuda.
Paging the San Jose Barracudas. Paging San Jose Barracuda.
Can you just like do the intro for our show and just announce everybody and just like?
Good evening and welcome to Pucknology Writers Room.
Oh man! All right,
Nice.
I can't even say that in the chat. Eric, where can we find you?
You can find me at PuckGuy14 on virtually every social media platform, and most likely either mid-October or the Friday after Thanksgiving on Wheel of Fortune.
That's right. Keep your eye out for that. And Drew.
My name's Drew Weber. You can find me blowing up Patrick O'Sullivan's Twitter page. You can also find me at Puck Over Glass on Twitter. I talk analytics and analytic-related things.
All right, and with that, we bid you adieu for another week. Stay tuned next week. I'll let you know when we're going to go. It's not really on a set day, so I'll try and let you know when we're coming back next. Until then, keep it fresh. Eric, do it.
Keep it real, keep it fresh, keep it real fresh. Can
There
I
you
have
have it.
Val, Ian?
Good night.